This is an intro video to Mockit, our latest project. So Mockit is a device imitator project and it allows you to spin up networking devices from different vendors in a matter of seconds by just having some YAML instructions. So since these devices are not real devices, real operating systems, they're extremely lightweight and effective and useful for testing purposes and labbing up something really quickly. So this is the repository page, and in this video I'm going to walk you through a few things you need to know about this project. So the first thing I want to do here is clone this repo. So I'm going to go to my terminal and say git clone. I am going to clone it here. It is cloned, so I'm going to go to the project and open it with VS Code. And on the left side, you will see a bunch of files and folders. And the first thing you want to do is go to the Docker compose file. So this is a basic compose file. We already have something here, so I can just go ahead and say Docker compose up and open up this container, and this device will be available to me. But before doing that, let's actually do a couple of things. So we see a few parameters here, for example, device type, SSH credentials, and this would allow us to actually SSH into these devices on port 22 or whatever port we prefer it to be, and run show commands. So the port is 22, that's the outer port that we try to reach, and this is the container port. So I'm going to go back to the repository page, and here I'm going to scroll down, and here we'll see a few parameters that can be added to the compose file. And if I go here, we have device delay, which adds a delay in seconds before responding to a command. Login delay adds a delay before the server accepts an SSH connection. And the last one is login retry, which defines the number of retries allowed for login attempts. So we can add any of these that we want to our compose file, but for this video, we're going to keep it simple and we stick with what we have here. And let me show you something else, and that is when we want to add another device. So I'm just going to use my shortcut here, Alt Shift down arrow. And now I've duplicated the instructions for another device. So the only thing I need to do here is change the name for these. And I'm going to choose Cisco NXOS this time. And make sure to change the port, the outer port only 23. The container port doesn't matter because these two won't overlap. They're like isolated. And I am going to save it and go to my terminal, Docker compose up -d and build. And I forgot to change the other port, which is for SNMP. This is the UDP port 161. We're going to change it to 62 for the second container. So I'm going to run the command one more time. So the containers are running now. If I go to Docker desktop, you see that Cisco IOS and NXOS are both running. To verify that, I can SSH to this one, which is on port 22, and say test. We are in. So if I say show IP interface brief, we can see actually an output. I am going to exit out and do the same thing, but for port 23. Test. We are inside NXOS now. So let me actually show you how it's possible to have this output. And I can find it from here, or I can just say Control P and say Cisco iOS. And you see these text files. These are the show commands that are now by default implemented out of the box, so we can use them. You can add your own text files or basically templates. So I'm going to use one of them, maybe. Instead, I'm going to search for show IP interface brief, and I'm going to choose for iOS. So this is it. These are the templates that are available, and we are simulating the real devices. And the way you can modify this is pretty simple. You can just modify this text file. For example, I can duplicate this line and maybe add loopback 1 and add another number here. And if I save that, I have to actually bring the container down and bring it up one more time for the changes to apply. So the next thing I want to show you is actually dynamic scripts. And from here, I am going to search for, again, Cisco iOS. And there is this config file or the initializer file in Python. And I am going to put in this script here. Basically, it tells me that if I run this command, it is going to return this string to me. And if I do that, I have to go back to the compose file. I have to go to the device that I want, which is the Cisco iOS here. And I want to paste in this volume mapping here. I'm going to map this to this volume. And if I do that, I have to say, first of all, clear and say docker compose down and up again. So they are started. I'm going to SSH into, not this, port 22, test. And from here, if I say show hello, it returns hello world, the string that we expected. I can also say show IP interface brief. And you now see that the new loopback is added. And the last thing I want to show you is SNMP walk. Basically, SNMP walk would send a command to any device that is running SNMP, and it would bring back the SNMP information such as OID and the vendor and so on. So I am going to run this executable on localhost, and this is running, the container is running on localhost. This is version 2, and since it's version 2, we are only using the community string. So if I run that, it returns Cisco iOS and some OID information and software information and so on. So that's all I wanted to cover. I will see you in the next one.